My name is Annette Fettman. Sometimes I say Annette Sherman Fettman. Here I am in Omaha, Nebraska, and we've been here 41 years. But I started out born in Chicago, Illinois, and living in Whiting, Indiana, which is like a satellite city of Chicago. And that's where my father had a business. He started as a plumber when he came from Russia, and then he became a businessman selling supplies to plumbers and people putting heating in their radiators in the house. And oh dear, I was born on the third candle of Hanukkah, but I didn't know that until now. But I remember my mother had a little Christmas tree. I guess she got it in the hospital. And I guess that dates me back to December and all that. My mom was only 18 years old when I was born. A real beautiful woman who had her picture in the Chicago paper, the Jewish beauties. And my father fell in love with her. Where should I go from here? Someone asked me if I'm this old, I'm 90. Do I remember a horse and buggy? No, I don't. I do not remember a horse and buggy. I remember a Studebaker. My father picked me up in a Studebaker. And he had built this apartment building with 2 stores downstairs. I mean, one was his, and the other one became a Kroger's grocery store. And upstairs there were 3 apartments, and one apartment was for our family. And what I remember about being in those early cars is that we didn't have defrosters. And my mother said I used to draw on the window. So I guess people said, when did you start with your art? And I guess I started, not the day I was brought back from the hospital, but sometime in my early years. My parents had 2 more children. I had 2 brothers. Unfortunately, one just passed away last year, my brother Jack. And when I was born, I was the first one, and my mother married at 17, and I was born when she was 18. And when I was born, she said, never again, never again. So she waited about 4.5 years till one of her sisters-in-law said, well, Max has to have an heir or something. So my brother Urban was born, and then a couple of years later, Jack came along too. And Whiting, Indiana is like a satellite city of Chicago. And what do I say? I remember the Depression. I remember when you could get an ice cream for 5 cents and a second one for a penny, or things like that. My mother was very particular all her life, I think, because I had banana curls and I walked about 4 blocks to school, and I was always late because of my banana curls. Then, speed up. And then, when I was about 7, I think I had my tonsils taken out, and I remember I didn't like to eat prunes because the skin got like caught in my throat or something. I remember my father hitting the high chair with a strap, slightly. And my cousin Manuel and I, they had a special, if you brought 2 people in for tonsillectomies, you got a special rate. So the 2 of us went in for tonsillectomies. And then my hair kind of straightened out, so for a while. And I was not crazy about ice cream, but they kept saying, well, you're going to get ice cream, you're going to get ice cream. So I used to smush it down and make it like I was the original soft ice cream person. What I remember as far as art goes, how I got involved, I remember it wasn't as free as it is now, as creative. I mean, like they'd give you a wooden rabbit or something, you'd draw around it or something, and the faces were just like a number 3. And well, I had this rabbit thing to use on a picture, and I said, I'm going to put carrots on the back. So that was something different, so the teacher thought that was special. And then I don't know if I was taking elocution. I don't know if I was taking it then, but I started to be reciting things, and the principal would take me around to different classes to recite. But I faintly remember that. Then the Depression got very bad, and my father lost the building that he had built for our family, and we moved about a mile away down the street from Robertsdale, Indiana, which is part of Hammond, into Whiting, Indiana. But we were still, maybe a half an hour from Chicago. And it was like it is here. People go to Iowa to save money. On tax, they would come in to shop at my father's business to save money, I guess. And we moved down, and I had to start a different school. Now, I guess it was around 4th grade. And my girlfriend, I met the neighbors, and my girlfriend next door, or 2 doors over, they were sitting on the back stoops coloring. And I came over and I said, I can color better than you can. So that's what she remembers, and we're still friends. Really better. So I did some painting. We were just using poster paint, and there was something I did which I wouldn't be very proud of. I think it was like a Mexican thing, and they put it in the fair store downtown. So that was about 4th or 5th grade. So I don't know. And I was taking all kinds of lessons, like 3 months of piano, 2 months of swimming, because when we're going to dive in, goodbye. We had a community center. We were part of Standard Oil. The refinery was down a couple miles away, and we just lived with the odors there. We weren't really conscious about it, because I guess the odor meant money. And a lot of people from Europe, Czechoslovakian, and all different. Now I think there's more Mexican and Spanish, but my good friend, their family was from Czechoslovakia. And down the street was a church. I remember my father felt a little uncomfortable when he cut the lawn on Sunday, because the church was down at the next block. But I didn't know anything about anti-Semitism. We had one synagogue, and at that time, everybody was one was the same Jew, not 3 different Jews, not going in 3 different directions. And yes, and that was down across the street from a big church, so we could hear the church bells. So what would be interesting is, I grew up in this school, and I thought it was kind of interesting. There were only 2 Jewish people, 2 Jewish boys in the class, and I was the only girl, but I was just part of it. In junior high school, I was awarded a bronze medal from the American Legion for being just an all-around student, I guess. And I think then, I mean, I'm surprised because there was, some anti-Semitism then. But, my father was a proprietor on the main street, and, I don't know. Later, I didn't know these things. And Renana has that medal. And I was vice president of the senior class, whatever, and we borrowed one of the trucks from our store and went around a rally and stuff. Let me think. I enjoyed being part of the skits that we did for assembly. And I think I played the lead in a Bret Hart Western, I guess, I don't know. And that was my first kiss, and my last kiss for a long time. And I played Mariah in, I can't think of that, Shakespeare, the one with the yellow stockings. One with the guy with the yellow stockings. It doesn't come to me right now. This is all in Whiting, Indiana, and Whiting High School. I remember, actually, when we moved over, then I went into junior high, and I remember this math teacher that they said was so strict, and we filed into the new building, or the not so new building, and he's standing at the door, and anyway, we became good friends. Well, I stayed out for the holidays, and that put a couple days here and there, and that put me a little behind on the multiplication tables. And so Mr. Real, he had them on cards. So I figured, if I memorize each card, then I could, and he timed us. But he got smart at the end, he moved the cards around. So I managed to get into high school. And being in these plays and being part of the gang. And what do I want to say? I actually graduated, and I was the valedictorian of a big class of 153 students. And the young woman who was salutatorian became a nun and a teacher. And I went on to the University of Wisconsin. Why Wisconsin? Because we had relatives in Madison, and I felt comfortable. I knew them, we'd been there, and I didn't have any particular boyfriend, but when the prom came along, the senior prom before graduation, neither of these two Jewish boys asked me. And one said, you'll probably wear a dress that's up to here or something. He took me to the movies once. The movie was around the corner from our house. And I have to admit, we usually went on Saturday afternoon. And once I won a Mickey Mouse watch. Anyway, I wasn't sure about what I was going to do, but my mother was very particular, and she had a housemaid, and then she had a woman that came in with the laundry. And our friend that came in and helped with the laundry on Monday, and then it was a big deal. You didn't have all these machines to do everything. And she was Hungarian. And the president of the class was Hungarian. And he had asked someone, but she had already made a date. So it came like this. I should remember her name, if I remember. She said, Robert Demeter wants to know if you would go with him if he asked you. And he was Hungarian. I guess I ended up with a Hungarian theme. But I said, well, it's okay. I mean, so the two of us were led the prom march. With a nice person and everything, and I didn't have to worry about Herbert Wish and Howard Seifer or something. Anyway, so goes high school. But that's kind of interesting. Went away to school, and I was a little familiar with Madison, Wisconsin. Oh, but actually before that, during the summer, my friend from Madison, Lantzman, from cousins that my family knew, she came in. Oh, well, first I went to Madison and spent a few days in the summer when I was 16, and Betty Blockman came to Whiting and spent a few days. But it was sort of a calamity, and because my brother Jack got sick with pneumonia, and so and at that time, and all our guests disappeared. But at the same time, AZA was having a convention in Chicago. So Betty invited George Gross down, and he stayed with us. So somewhere I have a picture that he took when we were in Whiting for a few days. Well, I decided I was going to go into art, and so, of course, you have to take all the basic classes, English, language, etc., and then you get one class in your major. So I started out with that and proceeded to draw. I have a picture in my bathroom. If you want the picture. George was sort of kind of a big man on campus, sort of. I mean, he peeled potatoes to pay for his tuition. He was from Milwaukee, and his father had a grocery and fruit stand in Milwaukee. So he was working his way through university in philosophy, but he worked as a disc jockey at this radio station. And those couple of days that we were up, and that I was up in Madison, Betty took me up to meet him at that time. But, he'd been going to school, and I never thought anything about it. So, what goes on, well, I can think of, it was during the war, and we had Truax Field, not far. I went down to the USO, I did portraits, caricatures there. I met a person who took me sailing. The first and last time I've been in a sailboat, please take me sailing. Madison is on a beautiful lake, and there's 4 lakes there. And when I came to Omaha, I was looking for the lakes. Not too much. I mean, I finally joined a Jewish sorority, and we did skits which we did on the stage at the Union, and major things there. The Ice Carnival. We decided we were going to enter in the ice sculpture. So we ordered so many pounds of ice, and they come in big blocks like that. Put them on the front garden in the snow, and start chipping away, And the theme was Sun Valley or bust. And being 20 or so, I said, well, let's do the bust. I don't know who came up with it. myself or my roommate Joyce Phillips or somebody. But we have Lady Godiva on a bear with the bust, and I think I have a picture somewhere. And she even has eyelashes. Besides the bust, she has eyelashes, icicle eyelashes. And we won a first prize.
Great.
The next year wasn't so exciting because it wasn't so. We didn't win a first, but we entered again. And during that time, I had some back pain, which turned out to be a cyst on an ovary my senior year. So I went back into Chicago, and had it operated it in the middle of an architecture class. No, it wasn't operated. I was taking the class. Okay, I took Spanish for a year and a half, and I'm sorry that all I remember is adios muchachos, compañeros de mi vida, de aquellos tempos. I'm sorry I'm not in good voice today. And I didn't realize how important, Spanish is now in the school and in the environment here. One of the teachers was Alfred Sessler, who had just come on the staff, and I had one of my paintings up, and I asked him if I had a future. He said, well, if you don't get married. He said, but you make good frames. There was a workshop in the Union, and we could go up and, with the miter and everything, put frames together. And there's one of them that's still sort of together. My daughter has on painting in her home. She has one painting I have in my room, and the committee in the home did not pass it to go on the wall because it doesn't really fit it. It's okay. My bluefish painting, when we moved to California, I put it in an exhibit, and it was received an honorable mention at a gallery in Beverly Hills, California. And I was like 22 years old, and I didn't make a big thing of it. But now when I think about it,
It was a big thing.
maybe it was a big thing. And of course, my mother reframed it, because my frame was Hammett, without asking me. But anyway, another thing that we did in school, yes, this is what I wanted to mention. We were in this home with a lot of girls from the East and from New York, and some of them were taking flying lessons. And we'd never been, you don't take a plane from Chicago to Madison, and if there was a flight from Chicago to Madison. And my friend and I, actually my school friend from 4th grade, who I just told her that I could color better than her. She followed me the following year and came to Madison to school. So the two of us decided we would get a lesson. We would take a lesson, half hour for Lorraine and half hour for myself. And I kind of forgot about it. When I mentioned to my children, they said, "Did you ask your mother?" God forbid. But that's one of the things we did in school. Well, I mean, during those years, we took one lesson. We got to see Madison from the air. We were in a Piper Cub. Okay, my family decided, my father decided, and my mom, that they were going to move to California. Much of my father's family had moved there, and my father thought his sinuses would be better in that area, and that he could get a manager to manage our store in Indiana. Also, my mother's brother had moved there. I shouldn't say, yes, I won't say. Maybe to get away from the family, I don't know. But my uncle and my mother's brother was there too. And I'm not supposed to say anything that I don't want you to know. So I don't know if I was a bridesmaid. Must be at somebody's wedding or something. There was a bouquet of flowers in the car when we drove out. We drove from Madison. I think we headed to California. California, here we come. My parents had bought a beautiful home in Westwood, and conveniently, you could just walk over the hill and be on the campus of UCLA. And it turned out I had to have a certification to teach in California, which I had in Wisconsin and in this area in the middle of the country, but California, so I had to go back to school, which I did. And I took bookbinding and more painting and ceramics and well, let's see. I didn't make any. There was someone I was kind of interested in, but you know, you're graduating, goodbye. He's staying in Milwaukee and you're going to California. So in California, the Hillel had graduate get-together, or the university. And who did I meet there? But I met the friends I know from Wisconsin. I met George there. He and his two buddies graduated, and the professor said, "Go west, young man." And they all went, the three of them went west. So we met, and then we started a date in California. And we were working with the Jewish organizations, raising money and things like that. George had been president of the Hillel in Madison. But at that time, Hillel wasn't such a big deal. I mean, well, they were in a second floor over shop on State Street. And, you know, some people, well, I won't go, I mean, to go to Hillel, you know, it was kind of not the up thing to do, or not the...
Wasn't cool.
Wasn't cool, yeah. But I went to Hillel. I knew him. Well, I knew him. I knew him from when I was 16. Anyway, I say we married. we married in California, and packed up and came back to the Midwest. It didn't work out. My father's manager did not work out, and George didn't have the greatest job in Los Angeles yet. I think he was selling zippers for manufacture, must be clothing manufacturers or something. So we settled in Whiting, near the store. We packed up, we made the decision. I spent 1 year, oh yes, how can I skip this? I spent a year teaching in the Los Angeles City Schools in Watts. And I had a big education. I had a great education. I can't say about the students. I know you can melt crayons on top of the radiator. I know that black is not beautiful. I had two big girls fighting. One called the other one black, too black or something, and she scratched and I said, "Look, the blood's the same color." Now, I didn't know that a great Indian chief had said the same thing, but I didn't know. I had my wallet stolen, but I did get it back, and it was an experience. So After I finished the year, we made our trip back to Indiana and to a new life in the middle of the country. And on the way, we kind of got lost once. I don't know how, but anyway, we got to Reno, and going on from there, I think, yeah, I think we played the wrong slot machine, because soon afterwards I learned I was expecting. And let's see, we were in an apartment, and I remember the washing machine and the wringer. You know, I don't remember a horse and buggy, but I do remember. Of course, our store had appliances, so I was treated with some of the good appliances later on. When we found a home, and we had a Bendix, and that was the original front loader washing machine, and I was stuck with that. Because in those days, I don't know, I didn't have diaper service. And we learned to take care of an infant, and when she came from the hospital, she looked like a little spring chicken, right? She grew, she's taller. Her granddaughter is taller than I am. Her 10-year-old granddaughter is taller than I am. So Rita's tall. Of course, my mom was small and, you know, smaller. And we tried to do things, George and I. That was just when they start making Hanukkah decorations and things like that people never heard of. People got to show their things. It turned out that Aviva had a head of curls. It was really cute. And later on, her firstborn also had a head of curls. Then 2.5 years later, we really planned. We had Renana. Now, Renana is not real fast, but she was very fast that time. I know I went to the hospital. I thought I lost some water, but they prepped me a little bit and then sent me home. So I was home for a week, and I was getting my hair done, and I was starting getting labor pains. And it's always, you know, a Friday night when you're getting the candles for the Sabbath and preparing everything, and George is picking up newspapers, so I'll have something to read, and zoops, we run out. Luckily at that time they had built a skyway, so going into Chicago to the Midway, where the Chicago University Hospital is, was much faster. And good thing, because when I got up to the floor, Renana was born in 11 minutes. So, and the doctor said, I hope you're going to have another child at some time so I can repair you. Okay. And she was a cutie, and I guess she was so cute that we wanted to try again. I don't know. Anyway, Miriam came along too soon. It was like 15 months. And every time they got cuter and cuter. In the meantime, we started feeling that maybe we should get into South Chicago, where there's more Yiddishkeit. George was learning with the rabbi in Whiting, and we became more observant. Unfortunately, our store was open every day but Sunday. But that was hard. There were hard things to do, but At any rate, eventually we did find a home there, and I don't think parents were too pleased because we didn't consult them and all, but we were in called Marynook. They were kind of new homes near 63rd Street in South Chicago. We didn't want to be far from the store because George was working every day in the store. And I guess that's one reason my parents weren't happy. But, and other things, but I don't have to tell you everything. And we were there and just getting settled in, sort of. And I was driving. I learned how to drive again, which I learned when I was 16, and I forgot during the war and all that. And we had a car. We had the carrier for the babies and all that. And we bought this home, and we went to the merchandise mart and picked out furniture, which I sold last year when we moved. Well, we had 3 girls. And my brother Irvin got married, and they surprised us with twin girls. And I was figuring out, later on they had another girl. And my baby brother had 2 girls. They had 2 girls. I can't believe that we were all girls anyway. So that's the Sherman family. No one to follow in the Sherman family. When I was growing up, my brothers were studying Hebrew for their bar mitzvah, but the girls did not have bat mitzvahs. We were learning Yiddish a little bit, something kind of workman circle or something. We were learning Yiddish. What I found out is that the rabbi, I guess he was a student then, had come in from Chicago and teach my brothers, and I think he ended up in Council Bluffs as the rabbi. Because when I looked at their 50th anniversary book, there he was with his family.
Really?
My brothers thought I was going to marry their teacher at one time. Okay. At any rate, I think I mentioned that George and his friends came west, and we met at the Hillel grad gathering at UCLA, and we were dating then. And we made the decision that we were going to come back to the Midwest, into my father's business, and George was more or less the manager. But my parents also moved back into the Calumet area after we did. And on the way, of course, I got pregnant, and I had my first baby girl. I can't say it was a big thing when I was growing up. And they had the parade went down the main street, which was, of course, in front of our store, and we usually had a float of something, not fancy, but a float. And I think one time we had a shower. I don't know. And my girlfriend was in the drum corps, and then at night in the park, our beach was, you could see Chicago from our lakefront. But at night on 4th of July, of course, this was the fireworks. During the day there was shows going on, and I faintly remember being on the platform alone, singing Wahoo Wahoo in my little cowgirl outfit. But that's cute. That's a faint remember of Whiting, Indiana. Anyway, let's go back. Let's go forward. Time went on. Let's go into
Who was your third child?
Hmm?
Who was your third child?
I mentioned Aviva, well, I mentioned that she looked like a little chicken, but we were renting the first floor of a family house, and then later, and Rachel. Aviva was born. We'd gone to Israeli dance program in Chicago, and we found the name. She was supposed to be David, but she turned out to be Aviva, which also means beloved spring. I don't know. Spring, today's the first day of spring. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then we waited, as I said, we waited 2.5 years, and Renana was born. Along came Miriam in a hurry in 15 months, so that was not so great. And she was not well. There was some kind of a wrist or blast, something with her blood. So she had to stay in the hospital an extra week or so. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kept thinking, well, maybe it was because I was a little disappointed that you came so soon, but that those things happen. But I came home without her, which is strange, but it happens to people. And so time went on, and what we wanted for our family, my husband became more observant. The rabbi studied with him, and he studied with me. And we started thinking if we moved into the south side of Chicago, we'd be near a bigger community of Jews. And there was a new congregation there that was coming up, and Rabbi Goodman. So we started looking for a house there, and as I said, my parents didn't know what we were doing. Maybe we didn't know what we were doing. Maybe it was another 6 miles from the store or from the business of 9, But anyway, so just about that, we made the move, I think, in December, and my father became ill. He was coughing. They were always doctoring, and it seemed like every year they'd go to Mayo, but he really wasn't feeling well. And they went up to Mayo, and I got a call to come up that they were going to operate on him, because my mother was there alone. So I flew up. I can remember George and Aviva in the airport waving, and the snow was coming down. It was in December, and my mother and I sat in the waiting room for it seemed like forever, and they come in and tell you the bad news, that he has cancer and they can't do anything. So we came back to Chicago. He came back to Chicago, to a hospital in Chicago. This is all December, end of December. And it seemed like George had a cold. And the new house where we moved in, there was a doctor across the street, and he thought it was just a cold, but it was his heart. He had a congenital heart, and my father and my husband were both in the same hospital on the near north side of Chicago. And I was driving in to see them there. My father was dying of cancer, but I didn't think that George was going to pass away. And my aunt was in another hospital in that area in Chicago, and she was dying of breast cancer. I know 3 women at that time that had breast cancer, whose husbands were doctors and passed. Anyway, my Aunt Frida, my mother's sister. Well, the fact is that within 3 weeks, my father passed away, my Aunt Frida passed away, and then George died. And he wanted so much to see the baby, and I did drive down with her. I used to go every other day because I had to drive through the city to the north side there. And it's, I don't know. My father had been checking every year with the Rochester. Well, times were different. That was 1961. That was January and February 1961. So, not supposed to look at it. I had my fourth baby on May, can't be. Yeah, I had her on May 13th. But I'm thinking when she was 9 months old, the day before George died. He died on February 14th. And there I was with 4 kids. Well, Aviva was over 10 already. We were talking about, what was she going to do about a bat mitzvah? And I said, or she was 11 or 12. Yeah, I just said, forget it, It wasn't a requirement at that time, but they were starting to do it, I said, oh, $125 for the study and this and that, and At any rate, my mother, of course, was a widow. Then she'd been married over 35 years to my dad. And it turned out that George's father and my mother married my father-in-law. Aviva and Rachel were like 10 years apart, the youngest and the oldest. And I think, they kept me occupied, to say for a while. I joined the choir in the synagogue. Max Janowski, from well-known person, wrote music and all, was a choir director. There were other things keep me busy, besides kids. Leo's sister-in-law thought that he should look for a wife. Leo should look for a wife. Oh, I didn't tell you who Leo was. He's the man I'm married to now for 53 years. A second life. It turned out that we got our 2 younger kids into the Jewish day school on the south side. Aviva was already too old to fit in there. And it turned out that Martin was in the same class. But anyway, people got after my husband. One of his teachers that he was working with there were so many, at that time, there were so many people in that area that were going to school that Leo had to teach twice in the afternoon. And there were about two or three Hebrew teachers. He was not the cantor because the rabbi had a wonderful voice, and the rabbi did the cantorial part for the service. So but he had to go twice, stay the whole evening teaching. And Noah Wolf and his wife decided that maybe we should have a double date, and they were telling Leo about me, yeah, about me. And later on in our book we wrote what he said, all these wonderful things about this person, and Leo says, what's not so wonderful? And Noah says, she has 4 daughters. And Leo says, forget it. So he forgot it for a little while, but he was curious, and so we started to go out. And In the middle, he had, I don't know if I should tell you this, but he was writing to some girls who were in the, J-date column in the Jewish press, in the Jewish press, in New York. And he was, I better go to New York and check them out. I said, go. Make sure I'm making the right decision. Then the big worry was, how was he going to support this family? Because he didn't have a cantor's salary. He was just teaching, and he worked in the morning, he worked in the supermarket. That's what he came for when he came over from Canada. He worked in his brother's supermarket. So
Did he have children?
Yes. In addition, he had 2 boys, and he had he had custody of his 2 sons, Martin and Jack. Martin was about 8 and Jack was 5. And so he didn't know how he was going to manage. But his mother came, or his grandmother, his mother came to him in a dream, just like Fiddler on the Roof. And she said, look in the Torah, and it'll answer your question. And in the Torah it says, he who takes care of the orphan and the widow shall have a good life. And he called me up, and I said, do you know what time it is? 1:30 in the morning. No, he didn't say that. I didn't call to ask you the time. So he asked me to marry him officially, and so we did. And we were married in the Morrison Hotel in Chicago, and I don't know why we had to have a big wedding, but we did. And it was kind of icy that day. It was also December 1992. So almost 2 years after the tragedy with our family. So the problem there, I mean, we bought a home in Gary, about 2 blocks from the synagogue. But when the holidays came around, Leo didn't have a job as a cantor. And he was just, the teacher, Rabbi Miller, was the cantor, I think, Frank Miller. So Leo came into Iowa for the high holidays for the students as cantor, the rabbi who was on campus in Iowa. And that wasn't, with a family, you want to be together for the holidays. So we started to look for a position. And of all places that we found in the Post and Opinion was Madison, Wisconsin, was looking for a rabbi. And I knew Madison, I felt that I knew, I've been there for 4 years, the school, and we had Mishpacha there, Landsman, and so we made an appointment, and that's what happened. We moved to Madison, and the problem was find a house for 6 kids. The bank on Monroe Street was renting a house in back, and for a temporary house with 3 bedrooms, and we slept in the living room in a pull-out sofa for a while. But that's where we ended up. And you know what they said? There was a picture, and I have the pictures. I forgot to get the pictures out. The newspaper took a picture when he came with the family, our family picture, and of course when the committee, Cantor's committee, was interviewing him, they said, "Tell us something about your family." And he said, "Well, I've been married 6 months and I have 6 kids." And someone yelled, "Only a cantor can do that." Of course, 1 or 2 of the people knew me. Knew our family. So anyway, we were there for 11 years. And And Renana graduated the university. Aviva didn't. She finished her third year, but she had fallen in love with one of the choir with someone that she met when she was 13, 14. One of the boys who had the best grades in the Tomator, of course, with top. She fell in love with Joel, and he had finished, and he was in the rabbinical school in New York. So I said, you might as well get married and finish in New York, which she did. So Miriam went off to Chabad. She didn't feel she was ready for regular campus life. And she went to Chabad, which took her to Minneapolis and then to France, to a yeshiva in France. And Martin had gone back to Madison, and Jack was still here, and Rachel was still with us. Rachel went to school in Denver, to Beth Yaakov in Denver, where Rabbi Nadov's girls had gone. Jeanette recommended it, and NCSY offered to help her with that. So she went there for her last 2 years after Central. And Jack finished here, and he ran one winter, he ran a canteen up here near the pool for breakfast and sweet rolls and breakfast, coffee. And then in the afternoon they'd have, before they had the machines, they had, candy bars and stuff. The Talmud Torah was there for a while. And then that summer, he did the downstairs, he did the poolside. And he made enough money at the poolside to take him to Israel. So he became part of the community up to that point. So where am I? Both kids, Rachel and Jack, went to Israel and went to school there. So that's our family. Okay. I did a little bit of artwork in Madison. I took a class in silk screening, and I took some jewelry art, and a little bit, but I guess that's what I was missing in my life, was creating. Mm-hmm. Besides creating meals for eight people every day. And one day I figured it out. Well, they had a kiddush for us, and I figured out how many meals over 8 years. Anyway, we'll skip that, because I don't have a computer handy right now. But the family was gone, and Leo says, "We have a family room and no family." Well, you get used to it, After a few weeks, you get used to it. And that's what we did. And Leo was very busy. He did some speaking about his experiences in the Holocaust, and I would be the navigator. So we did some of that, and that's in his life. And then the synagogue changed rabbis. I mean, they had Rabbi Fleischaker for maybe 9 years, and then they were looking for a new rabbi, and first one didn't work out so well, and the second one was a young man, and he from the conservative side, who perhaps he thought that Leo was going to be. He told Leo that he didn't want him to teach, and that was very important to Leo. And maybe he felt he was going to be counter to the conservative idea of Judaism or something. But Leo's impression was, I was sitting at the desk with his feet up on the desk, and calls Leo in and says, I don't want you to teach anymore. And that hurt him a lot. And so we started looking for a change. And we found a letter from, a note advertisement from Omaha, excuse me, from Omaha. And I didn't know Omaha. Madison I knew. And Leo sent tapes and all, and it turned out it was Dr. Morris who contacted him. Turned out that they hired someone else. But a year later, that someone else didn't turn out. And we were invited, or he was invited to come to Omaha for an interview. And then I came with him, and then we moved to Omaha. And guess what? We've been here 41 years.
Okay.
Well, Leo didn't want to buy a house right away. He wanted to make sure that this was the place he wanted to stay. But he was very pleased with Rabbi Nadoff. He wanted to work with Rabbi Nadoff. In fact, when I came with him for an interview, the teachers were having a meeting here at the J. The J was just built, I think, that year. And they hadn't finished the pool yet. But that didn't bother Leo because he was not a swimmer. In Hungary, he didn't have a lake or a place. But there was, I think, a strike, construction strike, right at the end when they were finishing the building, the J. At any rate, while we were in Madison, as I said, I took jewelry. Unfortunately, some of the things got lost, but that was interesting. And it wasn't until I came to Omaha that I started doing the sculpture. So we've been here 41 years, and Art Fishkin, I went with Fishman, I got the eye doctor mixed up. Art Fishkin told me about courses for seniors at Creighton that were like only $75. So I said, when can I have the car? So it turned out, I signed up for this foundry class, which I wasn't sure what it was, but it turned out to be sculpture class with Dr. Father Lee Lubers. And it was very hard to call him Father, but I didn't call him Father. And yesterday, there was a story in there about John Liba. And he was, at the time, he was assistant to Lubers. And after a few years, he told me I should go to Bellevue. So after several years, I don't know, that I worked at Creighton and learned some of the basics. And my husband sent me away to school. I drove down to Bellevue, and I worked with Les Bruning for several years. So when we started with, at Creighton, we started with styrofoam, which you could pack it into a keg of sand, vibrate it, and then you had a sprue about 10 or 12 inches styrofoam, and we set like a heavy piece of metal around it and poured aluminum or bronze through that little thing. And that styrofoam just evaporated and you had a piece. And it's not very good for the atmosphere. But that's where that's where I started with that. And then we did stone piece, and then at the end of the term, we were working with wax. The sculpting that I did early in my life was with a bar of ivory soap. You know, you can make a big elephant real easy. It just, but I remember I don't know if I got this idea. I tried to make a girl on a surfboard in ivory soap, and I sort of got it together, and my brother broke it, not accidentally, but I was so. So, I mean, I didn't like the clay and all that at that time when I was younger, at any rate. So we came at the end of the term with Lubers. We were working in a wax piece. We had to do a piece in wax that was going to be cast right in bronze. And that's the beginning. And the first piece I did was, we call it the Musselman. It was the skeletons from the Holocaust. I had decided in my mind if I was going to be an artist, I was going to be a Jewish artist. I wasn't just going to do whatever I wanted, flowers and whatever, but my work expresses me, my faith. So that's first piece I did. There wasn't enough manpower in Omaha who could help Rabbi, and I decided that maybe I could help with the kashrut, supervising the kashrut in the community center and mainly in the Jewish home that was built next to it. And my mother was in the home also at that time. So I took that position, but then I needed time to do my creative work, and I asked Ida Banner if she would be interested and take a couple days so I could go out to the studio, and that's what we worked out. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be the accomplished artist I am today. I'm laughing, but I didn't bring the booklet last year. There was an art professor from UCLA, and we had an exhibit at UNO in the library, and the way she wrote it up, you'd think, wow. I'm in the catalog, and I sold some pieces, so I really feel like an artist now. Here in the home, I don't have my car, I'm not driving anymore, although my license is still good. And the studio that I worked, I ended up in taking a corner of my teacher's studio when he moved into the hot shops. He has his own studio there. Actually, it's not even part of the building, it's a separate building. But we did a J-Dope production. We did two of them. The first one did very well, and I really enjoyed myself working on that. And, they did another one, and my piece is in the. I didn't sell that piece. It's in the Children's Development Center and Playground. It has sort of Shabbos candles on it. But the one that I did for the first event sold at auction for over $2,000. And of course, the artist gets 1/3 of that. 1/3 goes to charity, and 1/3 goes to the art group that worked on this. So, yeah, I got pictures of that. And that was, I got together with Betty Carlson and, oh yeah, Rose Shupak. She's think of an idea. And we sort of came up with Fiddler on the Roof. But it ended up with, it had like 11 fiddles on it, with a lot of fiddles on it. And it did well. But somebody wanted it, so I have it here. But the second one is here in the Child Development Center. And in between, we drove all over the state and part of the country. Leo was speaking about his experiences in the Holocaust. We got almost as far as North Platte and down to Hayes Center, places you probably never heard of that are here. It was interesting. And we supervised ice cream in Lamar's, Iowa, and in Kansas, Blue Bunny. But Leo was mostly speaking about his experiences and making people aware of what happened to him and to other people. And at that point, Leo was telling the rabbi that when he gets 65, he's going to retire. And Rabbi didn't retire, but he became ill. And Rabbi said, "You were right, I should have retired when I was 65. And unfortunately, Rabbi passed away, and Leo was filling in for him quite a bit. But after that time, we made another trip to Israel, and our family, our youngest daughter moved there, and his family, our baby has, our baby, I'll have to show you that picture. She has 10 grandchildren and one on the way. But at any rate, it was funny because it just turned out that Rabbi thought, oh, that's a good trip. So he and Annette decided to take the same trip. And we were there having lunch with the other people on the tour, and they said, do you know that there's a rabbi here from Omaha? You know, they had, oh, really? Who are they? They couldn't believe that a rabbi and cantor worked so well together that they would even go on a trip, not get away from each other, because in a lot of congregations it isn't that way. But it was really like made in heaven thing, because they did get along real well. And we did one trip where, I don't know, somehow we got a lot of extra tickets to fly again, and we'd just been to Israel. So I said, well, maybe Leo said, maybe Hawaii. So I asked Vera Lewis. They had been twice or something. She was my tour guide. She said, go to Kauai. So we made plans to go to Kauai, to go to Honolulu and then go to Kauai, because we were taking 2 weeks. And God interfered. There was a hurricane, and the place that we were going to stay in Kauai was damaged. So we had to move over. I said, Vera, where else should we go? She said, go to the Big Island. So our second week was in the Big Island. And we met in Honolulu. We met the Lubavitch, or the Chabad rabbi, same thing. And he said, there's a young couple there, maybe not so young, but they're looking to become more more observant. And if you go to the Big Island, you look them up. And so that's where Hawaii started, Leo. We got together with Scott and his wife, and they said, "You're retired? Maybe you could come for the high holidays." And I said, "Well, maybe I could come." And they had a board meeting, and we found out that they wanted us to come for they wanted him to come for the high holidays. So this went on for a few years. We went to Kona on the Big Island, and we found there was a young man there who had grown up in Madison, Wisconsin, of all places, and there was two fathers looking for someone to help their boys become bar mitzvah. I don't know if they'd ever been in the synagogue, except maybe on their trip to England or something. And Leo said, "How about the rabbis in Honolulu?" And he said, "Well, they don't seem to want to bother with it and to be involved." So Leo took these two boys on, and with tapes and listening to them on Sunday morning over the telephone. And we came in like 4 weeks before the bar mitzvah and had a little Hebrew school. And we had Shabbos dinner, showed them how to do a Shabbos dinner, and in our little, whatever they call it, little apartment. And we found friends there. And that's what happened with Hawaii. I should tell you, 1989, I had a ruptured appendix, and I could have died, but somehow I was lucky. I wasn't lucky with my doctors. The poison stayed in a sac or something instead of going through my body. And I survived, and then Leo had his spine was ruined by the by Nazi when he was a young man. And when you read his book, you'll find out that they didn't set it or anything. And at the end, he ended up with a short leg. And although they didn't stress, you had a big sole on your shoe or anything, until his back was really messed up. So in 1990, he had that surgery, and while he started making notes to write a book. And 1999, the book came out. And it was at the Holocaust Museum in Washington. And it's still selling a little bit. Our son Martin was living in Phoenix, and we decided to spend, some time, maybe a month or so, or 2 months in the winter down in Phoenix. At first he had an apartment for us, but later on we just rented a place. And we moved in half of our kitchen so we could have a kosher kitchen. Well, he bought a house and we had our stuff there. And somehow we realized that Leo's cousins, he has a cousin who's book support, publishing support, right in Tucson. Not Tucson, excuse me. Where the school is. And we talked to her, and she was very excited about working on it. So once she got Linda working on it, then we accomplished something. And here we had different people write the notes up and help us, but Linda had the know-how, and she got a professional writer to work with us to go through the book. And this man was not Jewish, he was a Christian, but he got very interested in it, and he wrote 29 pages about the history of anti-Semitism at the beginning of the book. And after he did that work, he said, I don't feel like having a Christmas party. I think I'll just have what's his name? A festa, whatever.
Fiesta?
No, this actor, now I can't think of everything all the time.
That's okay.
Yeah, he said, I don't, anyway. And so Linda helped us do the book and get it out. And when we went away for Passover that time, we went up to camp, we had books in the luggage. But Leo was speaking at Girls State. He spoke at Girls State in Lincoln, Nebraska, about 14 years in a row. And when the book came out, he started piling books in the trunk, and I said, what are you taking all those books for? Well, it turned out after he spoke, we sold over 400 books. So it went out. And so we were busy with that note. And still going different places to speak. Oh, let's see, we also did things like check the kashrut on ice cream. We know Blue Bunny. We know Baskin Robbins. We got around. It was either speaking or kashrut. And we had our home, and Leo started he was getting older, I wasn't. It happens that we were born the same year, but we're 9 months younger. We were both born in 1925. People think that, she married an older man. Well, I didn't. But he was starting to have trouble walking, and he would hang on the furniture, hold on to the furniture. He had 2 canes, but he'd use a cane maybe outside of the house, but he was holding on the furniture, and I was getting emotionally upset. I was getting depressed, and I don't know. I knew the home. My mother was here for 14 years. I knew the home. You've been here longer. And we were talking about a home, going to New York. Jack wanted us to go find a place in New York. We were just where we're supposed to be because we're part of the community. If we were out somewhere, who would know, who would know Leo Fettman? And I'm very happy here, really. So I recommend it to anyone. It will be, May 13th will be 4 years that we came in. Fortunately, I'm able to take advantage of the activities in the Jewish Community Center. You can walk right through the door and exercise. You can have Tai Chi. You can go swimming. I take a Zumba class on Sunday afternoon in the pool, which is good for the muscles. And Tai Chi is easy and simple, and it's so convenient. And I don't have to worry about what I'm going to have for dinner. And now they have this wonderful salad at lunchtime that you have a choice, a big choice. So I think it's super. And I don't have to plan what I'm going to serve. I don't have to get out to the grocery store. Of course, I want to go to Kohl's and use my coupons. But I saw the ballet yesterday, and my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren love it here because they come and they take part of the pool and the ice cream on Sundays, on Wednesday. They don't miss that. So, and Omaha is a wonderful community. I'm pleased, I'm sure, that my children don't have to worry about us, about Leo and I, because they know that we're being cared for very well, and that I'm really happy here and growing here.
How do you want them to remember you? You're an artist. You've been very involved in your religion. How do you want them to remember you and Leo? You've overcome a lot. You've had a wonderful marriage. How do you want them to remember you?
We're comfortable here, and we're happy here, and Leo likes to sleep a lot. But I got him to the opera singer last week. Imagine we had somebody, we had a color tour sing, and she winked at him. We have a life here, and they certainly don't have, as I said, they don't have to worry about what we're doing. And it's really a second life for us. I'm sorry that Leo can't appreciate all of it, but I think he's better than we thought he was going to be. It takes time when you come in here. It takes a few months to get accustomed to things. You know, being a religious man, you know, having a woman do things for you. You have strangers, but you get used to it. You learn, and they become very friendly. They become like your kids, you know, like your daughters. And we feel like we belong, and I wish that for everybody, and I wish that for my family when they get older. And of course, we're thrilled with all our great-grandchildren, and hopefully I'll take another trip and get to see and hug again. This is the first piece that I did over at Creighton in wax. And I'm not going to go into the whole process, but this is, call it a muzzle mat, but it was the way the prisoners looked when they were freed, when the liberators came into the camps, where they were skin and bones. And this is, as I said, I decided that my art was going to reflect my faith. And this also, of course, some of these things are an accident that turned out well. But this is the way I feel, the way we're following the Ten Commandments. This is a broken, slightly broken. I will show you my favorite. That's this piece. Actually, it was from a photograph in the Omaha Herald of people grabbing food from a truck. And I have it in bronze, and this is in terracotta. And this piece, I don't know if you can't see it, is the girl in the red coat from Schindler's List. There was a small child, and that was the only touch of color in the film, and you saw her running for her life. And what else? The best speeches. And I think this is a special piece. Lamentation. Well, my teacher said, work bigger, work bigger. But, you know, these things are pretty heavy once they're... I have a photograph in my room from Russia. It was a postcard that my grandfather sent, that my grandmother sent my grandfather while he was making money to bring them over. And I do have my aunt and was also in the picture, and my uncle. But I did this postcard from Russia. And I kind of like, I used Hanukkah candles. Yes. So I can't show you everything. You'll have to come.